The Deathwing is the name given to the first company of the Dark Angels Space Marine chapter. Unlike the first companies found within the majority of other chapters, the entire company fights within Terminator armor as opposed to just certain members within it. In addition, when a battle brother is promoted to the Deathwing, they in turn are granted knowledge of the chapter's darkest secrets. The Deathwing also features a unique colour scheme comparative to the rest of the chapter. While the rest of the chapter is clad in dark green, the Deathwing are coloured in bone white. This is a relatively recent change as well, due to the entirety of the Dark Angels chapter, during the time of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, being clad in black armour. So what could have caused the Deathwing themselves to adopt such a radically different colour scheme from the rest of the chapter, even when the rest of the chapter, with the exception of the Ravenwing, the Dark Angels' second company, changed their coloration from black to green? The official reason given to young aspirants of the chapter is told through the tale of Brother Ezekiel, a famous hero of the chapter. Ezekiel, also known as Cloud Runner, was a member of the Dark Angels' first company who was selected to command the next recruitment mission sent to his homeworld, a recruiting world simply known as the Plains World. Upon arrival, he and the other 30 warriors of the first company accompanying him discovered that the world had been infected and tainted by gene stealers. The numerous native tribes that the Dark Angels used to recruit neophytes from were destroyed, their descendants gathered into a great industrial city under the thrall of the gene stealer cult. However, instead of calling for exterminators as a standard protocol for worlds heavily compromised by gene stealer infestation, Cloud Runner looked at the situation as if he were one of the tribal war chiefs of his ancestry. As such, he and his men decided to fight for their people, or face a noble and honourable death in trying. As they believed that death would claim them in this task, Cloud Runner and his men enacted the Plainsworld tribal rite of the Deathwing, repainting their Terminator armour bone white, white being the colour used for funerary purposes amongst their people. Entering the heart of the Gene Stealer controlled city, Cloud Runner led his newly christened Deathwing Terminators on a direct assault into the heart of the cult's activity. With the death of the Gene Stealer Patriarch, slain by the librarian Two Heads Talking, the Gene Stealers fell to anarchy and into disarray, enabling the Marines to slaughter their Xenos foes with impunity, before the remains of the cult launched a desperate final counterattack against them. Only 6 Terminators survived the encounter, Cloud Runner amongst them. Instead of returning to the chapter, however, as was their duty, Cloud Runner and the others decided to reforge the ancient tribes of their homeworld, dividing the populace amongst themselves, where in turn the surviving Dark Angels would take up the role of tribal chieftains to lead the tribes once more, abandoning their Terminator suits and responsibilities to the Dark Angels chapter. 10 years after this incident, the Dark Angels sent a follow-up force to the world to determine what had happened to the recruiting party. This force, led by 1st Company Captain Broken Knife, located Cloud Runner before interrogating him. Broken Knife elected to leave things the way they were, with the exception of recovering the still white Terminator suits, judging the actions of Cloud Runner to be noble and pure. Cloud Runner, however, requested that Broken Knife not have the recovered Terminator armour repainted black, and instead leave the suits bone white to honour those battle brothers who had fallen in battle. Broken Knife's agreement to this request would eventually result in the entire first company of the Dark Angels becoming known as the Deathwing. However, this official reason is not without its flaws. The Deathwing company itself has been known to exist during a time prior to the Horus Heresy, along with the other specialised wings of the Dark Angels Legion, including the Ravenwing and the now defunct Dreadwing and Firewing companies, and as such could not have been formed after the Horus Heresy as this tale suggests. In addition, Cloud Runner and his men choosing to simply abandon their chapter, especially when possessing the highly valuable and ancient suits of Terminator armour, makes it seem unlikely that the Dark Angels chapter would simply allow these warriors to shirk their duties without answering for the crime of desertion, as there have been warriors who have been declared renegades or heretics for performing similar or less actions. It seems likely this story is actually an allegory to the truth surrounding the chapter's past told to the Dark Angels Astartes during their training and advancement through the ranks, as part of a calculated attempt to prepare the Marine for potentially learning of the Fallen. The Fallen being the name given to those Dark Angels who turned against their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, during the final days of the Horus Heresy, and are the secret shame of the Dark Angels and their successor chapters. The Plains world within the tale of Cloudrunner is also described as being the only Dark Angel recruiting world, as Caliban was also the only original recruiting world once the Dark Angels Legion were reunited with their Primarch, although Dark Angels were recruited from Terra itself beforehand. In addition, the loss of the people to Genestealer influence is said to damn the chapter, in the same way that the treachery of the Fallen damned the Dark Angels and their successor chapters, the Unforgiven. As such, the true reason for the Deathwing's change of colour scheme is in fact symbolic of the Deathwing's role as hunters of the Fallen, and as members of the chapter's inner circle. However, the tale of Cloudrunner can also be viewed as true from a certain point of view. The warriors of the Dark Angels return to their homeworld, which could either be Caliban or the Plains world, only to find it hostile due to betrayal and corruption, either from Chaos or Genestealer infestation. And as such, the Dark Angels fight to retake and secure their homeworld for the future, despite taking grievous losses, their Primarch in one example and the majority of the First Company warriors in the other. In essence, this keeps the truth of the betrayal of Caliban both secret from the neophytes, but also in plain sight, preparing the youngest warriors of the chapter for the truth of the chapter's shame for when they reach the venerated ranks of the Deathwing Company. Thanks for watching.